You can't have 600,000 Bitcoins get bought over the past 12 months for Treasury companies and have the price move like 17 or 28K. It's just not possible. I do have about 15 years of experience in an 18-year-old industry. It makes me a boomer in this space. But one thing I can absolutely say with confidence is they've just pulled it out of a hat. They don't go and buy them. Most of them, and that's one thing I really cannot stress enough, dude. Like, people are investing in these treasury companies, but they're not investing cash. They're investing their Bitcoin. There can be risks of this becoming an ultimate distraction long term. I think we're not out of the woods yet. I think we get to probably this cycle and then probably pull back. Once you kind of understand Bitcoin, you're like, sell it for what? People are like, you're going to take some profit? Into what? Strive Asset Management to acquire Semler Scientific, $567 million in Bitcoin in all-cash deal.
So I saw that they acquired a bunch of Bitcoin, but I didn't know it was an acquisition, though. Wow.
The Treasury play has gotten pretty muddied. I think it's got a lot of difficulty ahead. Like, I think it's, in its essence, it's a good thing, like, generally.
Right.
Like, these companies,
it's smart to do as a business. Yeah.
100%.
Right.
But what's not smart is just like this turbo greed dilution fest of like issuing new shares to buy Bitcoin, and like it's just a shit play. Like I get it. I totally understand what they're saying, but it's just not the way to do it long term. And that's why you're seeing like these companies, these basically these Bitcoin treasury companies that are only a treasury company. They think the market's going to go, oh my God, they've got so much Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I've got to buy this stock. Not really. The market's not, Bitcoin maximalists in the background. They're retail looking for opportunity. And the problem is with a lot of these treasury companies, the playbook was sort of, find a Twitter group, create an army of Twitter bots, or not Twitter bots, but supporters on Twitter, and get the kind of the momentum going in the social world. But what's happened with that is because the target audience is all these like, let's say Bitcoiners that are trying to make more money on their Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So
amp the returns.
You end up having this you get this audience of individuals that are all trying to buy your treasury stock because they think it's going to go up. Oh, this is the next strategy. This is the next meta planet. So I should buy into it. But the problem is that cohort of people, they're just looking for the next opportunity. So they're going to leave your company as soon as the next small Bitcoin treasury company pops up so that they can try and rotate into that, which is fine. But I just think long term, the way that the teams have gone about it has been quite cheap. So it's like, okay, we'll get heaps of hype and noise on Twitter. That's not long-term alignment, and that usually doesn't end well for everyone, which is sort of what you're seeing now, which is there's a misalignment. Some people are there to pump their bags quickly, and other people thought they were there for, a 10-year bet. But, if you're leadership of one of these companies, you've got to really focus on being aligned with your shareholders. Great example is Jeff Bezos. Hey, he was a publicly traded company. He wrote a letter to every person saying, hey, I get it. You guys like revenue, your shareholders. Fuck out of here. We're not doing any of that shit here. We are reinvesting all the revenue. We are not going to book a profit. Don't even try and think we're going to book a profit. So what does that do for the shareholders? Great. If you're not booking profit, I'm out of here. Good. Now everyone that was profit hungry is left.
Weeds them out.
And it's all the long-term people. So Jeff doesn't need to worry about people fucking pumping his stock into the ground because there's no one trying to leave, because everyone's staying in the stock for a long time because they're long-term aligned. And a lot of people in the community in Bitcoin generally, they scoff at things like this that feel sort of, not spiritual, but they just don't feel technical. They feel sort of emotional. But the reality is that the stock market is driven purely on emotions. It's not driven on fundamentals. The fundamentals trick the emotions into making decisions. And so I think, I definitely think there's a lot of iteration to be done on the treasury side of stuff. I think the opportunity is huge. I just don't think, that's not how I would have done it. I would do it if I was in charge of treasury stuff. Personally, yeah.
What do you think? Like, why is strategy so? Well, maybe it's not, but I guess so. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But why is? I feel like a lot of people think that strategy is the behemoth, and it can't be. It'll always be there just because. Is it just because they had such a big head start and they're just so far ahead, or like what are your thoughts?
Well, I actually think it's the sort of the market ownership of the instruments, because none of these other companies have like options markets and derivatives and all this stuff. But
Mm.
that's where you get all the meat on the bone, because like, just like, Wall Street bets turning Tesla into a monster stock through calls and puts and stuff like this, that whole segment of the market, like, these small cap treasury codes, they don't have access to these deep financial products. They don't have the relationships sort of embedded with BlackRock and Fidelity, which Saylor has already got. So everyone is sort of going to be fighting for relevancy, I think, because they need to get, like, say, Strategy is the only mature one, really. That and Metaplanet. But Metaplanet's mature for a different reason. Metaplanet's mature because it's sort of it's the biggest horse in its paddock or stable or whatever. Like, because Japan's a very specific localized market with their own issues with bonds and currency and interest rates and stuff. And so Metaplanet becomes like the exit, or the fire exit, I suppose, for a lot of people. So Metaplanet's play in that regard, they have that ace up their sleeve. Strategy has got being embedded into these institutions up its sleeve. But, if you look around at 3 or 4 others, they're just not there yet. They don't have the maturity in being entrenched into the financial system as they need to be to capture a lot of value, in my opinion. So it makes it challenging for these smaller cap companies to fight into relevancy if most of the capitals for a Bitcoin play is going to go into either Bitcoin directly, the ETF of Bitcoin, or Strategy, which is probably a more diverse product.
What are you? Yeah. I mean, it is really tricky. What do you think when there's, I guess, just a downturn? I don't know what you want to call it, but just the 4-year cycle. I mean, like, what do you see on the horizon here for these companies?
Yeah, I think some of them will have hard times staying listed. So basically, when the stock performs so badly, they might go into a delisting, and I think that could happen because the way that they've structured most of these stocks is to basically give a big discount to pre-public investors. So they call it PIPE, private investment in public equity. So it's basically like the VCs getting the ICO token at 25% discount before it lists on Binance. So what happens with that? Well, then they all sell because they've been promised a discount with, like, when I'm selling to you, right? Let's say you're a whale and I want you to buy into my treasury company. I go, dude, okay, our stock's going to be, it's a $1.50. I'm going to give you options at $1. So you're already 50 cents in the clear. We'll pump the stock to $8. You bought in at $1 and you can sell for all that cream. And you're like, great. But I haven't told, like, that's how I sold it to you. So if I sell it to you that way, you're going to expect an early return, which means you're going to sell out of your options very quickly, which means the price is going to tank very quickly. Because I've told you, I'm selling you on this sort of promise of profit. And that's usually like, don't be surprised when you take the profit, basically, which is going to tank the stock. But yeah, you go, okay, cool, the stock's $1.50. You're selling it to me at $1 and it's now at $8. Sell it all. Thank you. And that just rips the price back down. And so I think there's a bit of finesse needed into how these guys execute, which is one part. And then I also think there's a second part, which is, they're not really doing that good. Like, in general, they're not adding very much value. Like, okay, so people say, these treasury companies, they're all holding heaps of coins. All they have done is increase the amount that Coinbase's custodianship holds, which is close to 18% of the coins in circulation, or 12 or 15%. That's insanity. Because what happens if Coinbase gets hacked, then you now have essentially 20% of the coins in circulation saying, hey, I lost my coins, let's hard fork. Just like what happened with Ethereum, where everyone goes, okay, guys, well, basically everyone lost their money, so let's just hard fork. You set this up to be a thing. And so, you see Adam Back and all these people that are talking about, there's all these second, third order effects. Like, it's Idiotsville. Like, of course, you're driving all the coins into one spot, deliberately. So, yeah, I don't know what they're talking about when they talk about other centralization risks when they're literally the ones like directing traffic into one vendor. But hey, that's them. That's their job. That's their thing. That's their shtick. So good luck to them. But I don't think that's going to end terribly well long term, which I think a lot of the teams are feeling the pinch now. They're feeling the lack of long-term alignment in basically in the stock. And usually that comes from the way that you sell people. So like, people will come for profit and leave for profit. If you sell them on the dream of profit, they will take the profit and leave. If you
Going
sell
back
them
to
on
the Bezos example,
hold it for 10 years, then you're going to get a bunch more people that will hold it for 10 years. So anyway, it's all part of the learning curve. And I think these iterations are healthy in terms of learning how to navigate the market and how to add the most value long term. And that's one thing I really cannot stress enough, dude. Like, I mean, I'm not smart. I'm a dumbass, but I'm good at knowing what I'm shit at, which is almost everything. But I do have about 15 years of experience in an 18-year-old industry. And one thing I can say from experience, it makes me a boomer in this space, but one thing I can absolutely say with confidence is focus on long-term outcomes, especially in Bitcoin. It is a persistent ledger. This is like Mount Rushmore or something. It's not going away. Like, it's going to be here for another 60 years or another 100 years. So focus on that longer-term destination. A lot of people go very quick, and you're doing yourself a disservice in a way, I think. Yeah. So anyway, we're all learning though. We're all learning, and we're learning as fast as we can.
Truly.
Eating the glass.
The world is changing. Privacy, sovereignty, and freedom are no longer optional. They are essential. If you are still holding your Bitcoin on an exchange, you are vulnerable to your Bitcoin being frozen or the Bitcoin not even being there. In a world of broken trust, a fallen world, we need to be able to know through code, through math, that we have the keys to our wealth. We don't need to trust some third party. We don't need to trust some government. We don't need to trust some ruler on high that they're going to have our wealth and not censor it from us. Just ask European Union how that's going right now. And that's why at Foundation, they're building Bitcoin tools that are open source, privacy first, and actually simple to use. It's the only kind of Bitcoin crypto tools you should be using. The Passport Core is a Bitcoin-only hardware wallet, probably made in the USA. The only one that I know of, fully air-gapped, no Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to compromise your keys, with a large screen, seamless QR workflows, and encrypted micro SD backups. It is here for the average person or the advanced cryptographer as well. Along with your purchase, you get the attachments, the USB-C cord, the iOS and Android attachments, micro SD card, and the USB-C cable. You don't have to go searching around for everything. You also get the free Envoy mobile app as well. You can buy Bitcoin straight into your self-custody. It helps you set up your Passport Core, label and track your coins, manage your keys, and do so much more. Foundation built the core and their company for sovereignty and freedom for all of humanity. You can take back control of your money and your digital life now. Get started today at foundation.xyz/Brandon, foundation.xyz/BRANDON, or check the link in the description. Yeah, literally. I mean, humans have never had money before. We don't know what to do, Michael. Like we have money for the first time. We're trying to figure it out and figure out what the hell is going on, right? So it's why is that why? Like, why are people the Bitcoin Treasury company, I feel like, is a version of that. Like you said, the Bitcoiners trying to find some more alpha. You've got a lot of the crypto world, like they're in altcoins still. They're creating more altcoins. There's meme coins, trying to find alpha in the fiat system still, basically. And is that what it is? Just fear and greed that keeps people trying to go out the risk curve instead of just sitting there and focusing?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It usually is just greed, and that's not because like people are assholes or something. We're just designed that way. Like the system, most of our choices are a product of the environment we exist to make those choices from. So like, I don't think people are being greedy. I think our conditioning has never taught us to focus on enough. It's always taught us to focus on more. So like, if you have a definition of enough as a male, right? Like, let's say you're working and you want to retire. You set a goal. All right, if I get to a stack of 1 Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoin or whatever it is, I'm going to retire. So you have a goal. So when you always have, when you don't have a definition of enough, you don't have an end goal. So there's no finish line. So basically what you're going to keep doing is just wanting more, but that makes you quite directionless. And that usually starts affecting your time preference quite a lot. So you'll be quite greedy because you just need more. You don't know why you need more. You don't know what you're going to do with more, but you just want more because that's sort of the default setting. So yeah, I think, I think it's interesting, but I think, I definitely think that's probably the biggest motivator, just ignorance to actually having a goal, sort of, in a way.
Do you think, and I agree with you, do you think that do you subscribe to the theory, and one of my buddies just mentioned this the other day, and like literally he found like a tweet. He's like, I'm gonna go like look into this a little bit, and then I think he found like some British HODL tweets and sent them to me. He's like, look, like, you know, do you subscribe to the theory that there are a number of Bitcoin whales? I mean, I guess we mentioned Adam Back. I mean, clearly he is one of them, where it looks like they're selling Bitcoin to get into treasury companies, right? Or whatever. Do you subscribe to that being a factor of a price suppression and things just kind of moving deck chairs around?
Well, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you something that happens, Brandon, so I used to run a company called Wire, and we did a lot of OTC trading and like very deep liquidity and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So during the day, right, you've got customers that are retail and they log in and they buy their $100 or their $200 or whatever. And then you get the private desks get phone calls from people and they go, hey man, look, I'm looking to buy 10,000 Bitcoin today. What can you do? And then the desk will go, okay, well, let's see, instead of just pushing that onto the order book, let's find someone that also has 10,000, because then that way we can do what's called a net settlement, which means we don't push the price onto the order books, which means that buying power, which would usually push the order books up, that won't exist. In the same way, the sell won't hit the order books. But what that does, it takes a huge transaction and doesn't affect the price, because it's only using the price as a reference. So I say, hey, I want 10,000 Bitcoins. And you go, great, the price is 118K per Bitcoin at the moment. And that's what it is on the order books. Now, if I went and market bought 118K or 10 Bitcoin or 10,000 Bitcoin, 118K, that will rip through the order books and pump it really aggressively. If I do an off order book settlement, I'm never putting any of the liquidity there. So that 100%, it's not that it suppresses the price. It's just not, when you're doing off-chain settlement, it's not price discovery. And so anything in self-custody is price discovery, but OTC desks, they're not actually helping the price. So you can't have 600,000 Bitcoins get bought over the past 12 months for treasury companies and have the price move like 17 or 28K. It's just not possible. Like, quite literally, if everything wasn't, so that's one part. But then the second part is a lot of OG whales what they're doing is they're saying, well, with these treasury companies, they're not actually investing. You know how you see these treasury companies come and they're like, oh, we've got 20,000 Bitcoin. Like, they've just pulled it out of a hat, right? They don't go and buy them. Most of them are getting these private investors that are investing Bitcoin. And the idea is that, hey, you give me one Bitcoin's worth, I'm giving you 25% off our stock. So, if you give me one Bitcoin, that's 118 grand. If our stock is $1, you get 118,000 worth of stock, but it's listed at $1.50, so that's more like 200 grand. And that stock's going to go to $5 or $6, so you're going to have 500 or 600 grand, sell the stock and buy back more of Bitcoin. So now you've tripled or quadrupled your stack of Bitcoin. So what happens there? The investor holding the Bitcoin now gets more Bitcoin. Well, that's the goal. The treasury company looks the part now because they've got a lot of Bitcoins. And now as a treasury company, so it's like people are investing in these treasury companies, but they're not investing cash. They're investing their Bitcoin. So that's how they get this stack of Bitcoin. Now, so they've got a stack of Bitcoin. What do they do with that? Well, now the optics are better for the company. Cool. We've got Bitcoins on our balance sheet. Great. That looks good. And now also the next kind of step in this machine is, we've got these Bitcoins on our balance sheet. Now let's go and borrow against them, because we've got these Bitcoins, so we should be able to borrow against them. It's like having a property or something. And then that starts the flywheel from there, basically. Sorry. So look, I don't think anyone's badly intentioned. I think everyone's just gotten excited and maybe rushed and cut a few corners here and there. But I know that this is sort of an iterative process where you've got to kind of acknowledge what's not working and why it's not working. I think there's a problem. There can be risks of this becoming an ultimate distraction long term. And there's very different plays between MicroStrategy, which has got 100 million or 150 million revenue as a business intelligence company, and then a big cash reserve, which is converted as Bitcoin. There's a big difference to that versus, Wolf of Wall Street buying a penny stock and then shoving Bitcoins in its balance sheet and calling it a gold mine. That's not really the case. And you got to remember, like, Bitcoin, Bitcoin is for everyone. That means if you're a stock and you're like, let's say you're a stock and you need people to buy a stock for it to go up. Bitcoin is for everyone. So if you're a stock owner, like the CEO of a company, but you're making everyone unhappy, there's Bitcoiners that short companies. There's Bitcoiners in private equity. There's Bitcoiners in government. There's Bitcoiners at your local school. They're everywhere. So if you're kind of like shitting on the Bitcoin community in a way, they're in lots of places. So they might be shorting your stock to oblivion, like because they got a problem with you or something. Like, and so you got to kind of, this finesse of these public markets is so, it's very demanding, but I think it's interesting. And I as much as I think there can be problems that come with it, I still admire the teams pushing for it and trying to make it a thing and figure it out, because we can't figure, look, we might not have gotten it right in the first iteration. So what? But at least we tried, and at least we said, okay, well, that works and that doesn't work. This can add value. That's not going to add value. And just kind of that slow iteration where all of us as a community, we're all figuring it out together. And this happens a lot of the time with things like interest-bearing products or leverage trading products, where the community kind of levels up its own tuition. Let's say with FTX, everyone gets burnt by that, or Celsius or BlockFi. Yeah. So it's sort of the whole community learned a lesson there, and everyone goes, okay, don't touch those sort of products or whatever. So I think, look, the best of a bad situation is people are trying to do things good. They're trying to add value, and I kind of hate on someone for trying their hardest. But I hope that there's some positive iterations we can get from and learn and take away, like learnings basically, to make things better.
Yeah, so well said. And that's Bitcoin. You know, you don't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin changes you, right? Like we're all learning. It stays the same, and we have to keep changing and learning around it.
We're adapting to it, not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. That's Do you think, or where is the price movement coming from then? Because again, I think that's what's confusing a lot of people. So I'd love for you to just unpack this for a minute for the average person. Of like, we've doubled obviously since, you know, the election in America a year ago, or almost a year ago. It was doubled. But when you explain that, the OTC and how that works, and which is great again for the average person who doesn't understand that, and it's, for lack of a better phrase, you know, canceling a lot of itself out to a degree.
Yeah, exactly. Crossing off.
Yeah. Where's the rest of the price movement coming from? Because like, again, the other part is like, well, where's retail? Like everyone's like, well, where's retail? How can we have a 2017 or a 2021 run up in retail?
I think retail is on like the party bus of BlackRock, basically. So we're not looking at retail walk through the club. The retail is coming in as a group function almost. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're waiting at the phone. They're like they've got their own sectioned off, and that's with BlackRock and Fidelity and stuff like that. So I think that's absorbing a lot of the retail interest. I think retail's sitting a lot there. A lot as well. Retail would be... See, retail gets hoodwinked very easily. Like, as in, you know, retail starts with the Bitcoin journey and they're on the track, and along the way, everyone's distracting them, trying to get them to pull over to the side of the road to buy their coin. Hey, I know you're heading towards Bitcoin, but by the way, we're $3
down the catwalk.
120,000. We're going to be worth as much. So, but everyone, you know, that's happened to me. That's probably happened to you. It's probably happened to everyone. And everyone pays their tuition. Everyone goes, you know what, man? Next time I go to Bitcoin, I am not stopping along the way to look at all these shitty coins. You know, it's so like it's like going for a drive somewhere and stopping at a shitty restaurant and being like, bro, never again. Let's just eat at the place when we get there. That's kind of what it's like. So,
man. So where is it, you know, sovereign wealth funds, nation states, where, you know, and again, I know that some of that's in the OTC desk and some stuff like that, but where does that movement come from? So even we'll just take the doubling, I guess, from a year ago or this last year, where does that movement generally come from then? Is it just
I think this time a lot of it to be attributed to corporates, basically. They've just been the biggest collectors of Bitcoin this whole season. And then obviously BlackRock being kind of a proxy for retail. So I'd add up all the corporate treasuries, and then I'd mix that with BlackRock, and that is sort of a representation of retail and corporate interests that are growing. I think the BlackRock product has been incredible, like that they've released, like as a product, as an offering and everything. I think that's huge. And they're going to be doing, I think, in-kind redemptions as well, which will be really big. So that means people that can basically buy stock in the BlackRock ETF and then they can withdraw Bitcoin. So that's going to be pretty wild when that happens. Yeah, but it is sort of, I think everyone's still trying to figure it out. What works, what doesn't. But yeah, most of the buying at the moment is coming from corporates, and most of the selling, well, actually, I don't think there's too much selling going on. I actually think it's just because so much of it's being net settled that lots of the selling and lots of the buying doesn't hit the order books in the first place. And the more that you have the Treasury, the more that you have the average buy being big, the more off-chain those purchases will be. So if corporates and Treasury companies are the primary buyers or big buyers, and their transaction size is like 1,000 Bitcoins plus or 500 coins plus, those never hit the order books, which means the price never really wriggles. You need people pushing stuff onto the order books for the price to wriggle. So I think what you're going to see in the coming months is probably a lot of the stuff with the stable coins and the bonds. So maybe in the next 6 to 12 months, you start seeing these stablecoin companies buying up US Treasury bonds, which is basically their way to say, hey, exactly what Tether's been doing, right? But that connection between stablecoin liquidity and buying power or the Bitcoin price, I think they're very tightly correlated, very, very close to the action. So I wish I had a crystal ball sometimes, but I don't.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice? So really quick for the average person too is we have a wide range of people that listen to the show. I mean, what is so what you were just outlining in essence and what Tether is doing? I'd love for you to just unpack that for 30 seconds and explain that to people.
Yeah. So Tether has people that go, hey, I'd like digital dollars. And you go, great, give me $100 and I'll digitize it for you. It's like converting, a picture to a digital image. They do that with your dollars. But now Tether, with the money that they've got in the bank, because I gave you $100, if we have 1 million of us doing that, that's $100 million. Now, what Tether does is they go, well, fuck, okay, we've got $100 million. We've got 100 million digital dollars out there that we need at any time to back 1-to-1. So Tether goes, well, okay, well, that's fine. Let's put this big 100 million pile, let's put it into something that's going to be low risk and give a bit of return because the economies of scale are so large, we can make some revenue on this. Whether it's 1% or 3% on 100 million, it starts becoming meaningful. And so Tether, as the issuer, think of them like the digital bank or the central bank, they're the issuer, but they're also, as a company, they're trying to make money on their, what they call the float. So if you've got $100 million in Tethers floating around, there's $100 million in cash backing that. And so what they're trying to do is basically turn that 100 million into something like 105 million, make 5% or 7% on it. And so in that process, they buy very strong products. So it might be like government bonds or Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's one of the big things on Tether's balance sheet. And so if you're a bank and you buy $1 million worth of Bitcoin and it goes up 20x in 4 years, as a bank who charges 1% fees and stuff, you could have never it would have taken you 1 million quarters of revenue to make that much money. And so these low margin companies, typically money like financial institutions, they can make a lot just from investing in this super asset. And so that's what Tether's done. But in the process of more stable coin liquidity coming in, what happens is if you've got $100 million and you keep growing your stablecoin float, you need to put that 100 million somewhere. And when you put it into Bitcoin, that means that's buying Bitcoin. So now you're pushing you're buying Bitcoin. So you become another buyer basically in the market. But as stablecoins grow, like think they've got over $100 billion in circulating float. And when they go to 200, 300, 500 billion, that's all buying power that's getting injected into the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so all these stable coins, because they want stability, it's in the name, they want stability, they're going to buy these deterministic assets. So things like Bitcoin and things like government bonds and stuff, basically long-term things that they don't have to think about too hard for a long term. So yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah, it makes me think of a few things. Where do you think the future lies within stablecoins? Obviously, with emerging countries, it's a big thing. And do you think it extends dollar dominance? Like where do you think the stablecoin game plays out?
I mean, I think it definitely gives access. It increases access, but I think a lot of people, similar to how like Africa skipped dial-up internet. So Africa didn't really have dial-up internet. They went straight to like satellite and cable, basically. I think a lot of these lower economic markets, like where their economies are cooked, like let's say Zimbabwe, Kenya, South America, Argentina, all that sort of stuff. That if you talk to them, they don't need an excuse for Bitcoin. They know why it's valuable. You mean to tell me I can put money in this and we go, oh, but it's volatile. They know with certainty when they have $100 in their local currency that it will not be worth $100 by the end of the year. It'll be worth like 25 or 40 or something because of hyperinflation. Now, Americans and like Westerners, like, Australia and stuff, we're starting to realize this now too, because we're feeling it, where it's inflation is actually probably closer to like 15% or something. And so the sales point isn't actually that big. They're just like, yeah, great, straight into Bitcoin. So I think you're going to see a lot of utility coming from stablecoins, which is sort of just giving people a digital bank account that's easier. So sort of similar adoption to things like M-Pesa, PagSeguro, and all these other kind of e-wallet PayPal types. I do think that while it will extend dollar dominance, it will increase adoption of Bitcoin at the same time. So the more stable coins you have, or the more stablecoin liquidity, stablecoins provide basically a bridge into Bitcoin. And so you're going to see as the dollar gets worse, people want more bridges into Bitcoin. So I think you're going to find a lot of people, basically for the dollar, it'll be like falling on its own sword. So the better the dollar does in distribution digitally, the faster the pipes connect to get people into Bitcoin past. So basically using the dollar, the digital dollar, to then go into Bitcoin. So it's sort of like, it is in a way, if the dollar does its thing, which is mass distribution digitally, they will likely fall on their own sword in a like a healthy way, where most people land in Bitcoin. I imagine, not 100% certain, but it feels fair.
Everything you are learning in this episode is completely moot and does not matter if you hold Bitcoin and are still leaving it on an exchange or sharing keys and your KYC information with a third party. This is your wake-up call now. You are only self-sovereign if you alone hold the keys to your wealth. 100% self-custody sounds daunting at first. Believe me, I lost 2 years of massive gains over a decade ago because I was worried about taking the few minutes it took to understand self-custody. And that's exactly why you need to talk to my friends, Tony Yazbek and his team at the Bitcoin Way. We just interviewed Tony recently, has over 80,000 views, an overwhelming response. People love his story and the simplicity he shares of how easy it is to custody and take ownership of the greatest money we've ever seen. They'll train you to do it right the first time. Head on over to thebitcoinway.com/Brandon to schedule a free 30-minute consultation today. Their 5-star rated service is exactly what you need. Quit sitting on your hands like I did and get started today. Again, that's thebitcoinway.com/BRANDON. What do we have here? 12-word seed plate. After a long wait and everything being sold out, this is now here, the 12-word seed plate. For those who have been asking, store your generational wealth in titanium forever. Do not make the mistake of storing it on paper. This can withstand fire, nuclear fallout, wind. We've driven over it. We shot hockey pucks at it. We've checked it. We've thrown it. We've done everything possible. Do not pass down your generational wealth on paper. Put it in titanium. Go to stampseed.com. Put in code Brandon, BRANDON, for 15% off store-wide. Do not be a statistic. Show your family how much you love them. Store your generational wealth forever in titanium. Code Brandon, 15% off store-wide. What are your thoughts on, so we were just kind of going around this a little bit with Tether. Like, did I say they just bought some gold recently or something like that? I thought I might have seen something like that, but I mean, gold dripping. I would love your thoughts just on, Peter Schiff's taking laps right now around Bitcoiners and, we're winning so hard. And I would love your thoughts on just like even some of the geopolitical, like, BRICS and just kind of gold and the role of like what's going on right now.
Gold is becoming a thing. I think people are now looking at it making a comeback in a way, like as a store of value or as a backing instrument against, typical sovereign currencies. And then obviously the conversation with BRICS, talking about a gold-backed currency along with the smelting plants or whatever it is, like the refineries, like how they're basically like different countries are basically getting these gold refineries ready, which sort of says, hey, people are going to start using gold again. everyone's already got gold as well. Like all the countries have gold. So it's in their interest to basically say, let's make gold more valuable because we've already, like, it's like all Bitcoin is saying, should we try and pump something new or should we all try and make Bitcoin be worth something more? We're all going to vote for Bitcoin. In the same way, all these governments and institutions are basically like, yeah, we've already got heaps of gold, so it's better if gold pumps. So I think, look, there's definitely something there. I think as we get educated as a planet, like we're all learning about the difficulties of inflation. And so gold is becoming more and more attractive. Now, Tether is launching a gold product. So they're launching the Tether, like just like they've got USDT, they've got XAUT or whatever, which is, the gold ticker. So I see that becoming a big instrument for them as well, because they'll want people to be able to go into Bitcoin, go into gold, basically hard assets that are inflation resistant or sort of like on the other side of the inflation spectrum, stores of value. Yeah, but I think gold will have a place and gold should pump. The more people understand Bitcoin, so there's a whole generation of people that are learning about Bitcoin and never understood anything about hard money and stuff, myself included, literally. And now the more those people are educated, the more they understand why gold bugs exist. Because if Bitcoin didn't exist, as a person who understands Bitcoin now, or like tries to and learns more about hard money and stuff, I would be like, if it didn't exist, I'd be like, I need gold or something. As a flight to safety. And so I think that as the education in understanding hard money and the necessity for hard money, I think you'll find that gold keeps pumping as well.
Do you think that the base? It feels like to me that we're building a massive base of hodlers. The price, and again, it's hard because the price has doubled in the last year. So I mean, it feels like it hasn't. I think to a lot of people, it feels like there's a general malaise. Feels like there's a lot of capitulating or people that want to capitulate right now, right? Like you look around Bitcoin Twitter or stuff like that in your own echo chambers, and people are like, on the ledge. It feels like, it's sneaky, but it feels like there's just a massive base because that's what it does every year, every 4 years, right? I mean, like you build a new base of people who understand and they're not getting rid of the coins, even the Bitcoin Treasury companies. I would imagine there's a lot of those companies or a lot of people that get it at this point and grok Bitcoin. A lot of those people aren't going to give it up. So that's the new floor, is it not?
Because you got nowhere else to go. Once you kind of understand Bitcoin, you're like, sell it for what? People are like, you're going to take some profit into what? Like sell it so I can go watch my money get radiation poisoning
Evaporate.
like Chernobyl or something, because it's melting. Like it's like, okay. It's weird because we're so used to trying to make money, but the whole aim of the game it shouldn't be who can make the most money this year or next year. It should be who can make money the least amount of times and preserve it for the longest amount of time. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so absolutely. I think we're all learning that now, which is a good thing. I know I'm definitely learning a lot more about it.
What are your thoughts on just like kind of just going through a lot of this that we just talked about? Do you think there's a risk we run of, because I'm a believer that it's the first time we've had money and it's a protocol outside the system. And I think you do too. I'm pretty sure you do too. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's completely outside that system. So do we run the risk of you have to be careful with how we're talking, like, oh, it's a reserve asset. It's in these companies. It's like these companies need Bitcoin, not the other way around. And I feel like we're riding this line, whether it's the core versus not stuff, some of this, which we can start touching on here a little bit, but like we're riding the line here, boys and girls.
I 100% agree. And I think a lot of the thing with sort of maybe where there's been a bit of division in the community has been, the idea like, oh, Bitcoin is going to take over the system. Like, it's already won, theoretically. It's a better instrument. But it's just a matter of like, do we want to kind of beg TradFi to accept Bitcoin for what it is? Oh, please, please, please adopt it, please. It's like, like you got to be careful that we don't import TradFi values into Bitcoin, and instead we export Bitcoin values into TradFi. And I think a lot of, due to the excitement of the opportunity, a lot of the Bitcoin Treasury companies have imported the TradFi values into Bitcoin and not the other way around. Bitcoin is designed to be very easily auditable. And it's designed to be the only asset that you can basically hold yourself that's digital. The only bearer asset for property, basically. But, none of the Treasury companies verify their own keys or ownership of their own keys. Metaplanet has, but not really anyone else. And they're all using custodians. So you don't get the benefit of, like, MicroStrategy spent like over $1 million last year in auditing fees. Let me tell you something. No one gives a shit about MicroStrategy's business. They care about their Bitcoins. That's what people are buying or holding the stock for. Like, end of story. And if you can't show me you verify your keys, then that's a problem. That's just an optics problem. That's a layup of goodwill that you are totally ignoring. And it's an own goal, but strategy right now is feeling the pinch a bit because there've been a lot of disgruntled investors, because a lot of investors have gone, oh, I can make more money. Strategy goes up faster than Bitcoin. And so people make that trade where they sell their Bitcoins, they go into strategy, and then obviously Bitcoin starts ripping, and now they've got the shits that strategy's not ripping as well. But yeah, that's an easy layup. Verify your coins, verify your keys, you win. Like, that's how that's an edge over the other treasury companies. And I think so. Not embracing that or evangelizing that, especially when you're spending over $1 million on auditing fees, like $1 to $2 million. That's not nothing. That's 20 Bitcoin, and if you love Bitcoin, then that's a whole chunk of change. So I think there's a couple of sort of minor things. This is all part of the call it a rough draft, and these are all feedback notes, basically. You know what I mean? So we're still getting the hang of it. We're still figuring out what works, but I do think there's a lot of layups to be had by just adopting the principles, like verifying your own keys and your own coins. I think that helps the community get behind you even more aggressively. Yeah.
The thing I can't square the circle with, and it's just, I've gone back and forth so many times with it, is, I believe that the Trojan horse has to get inside the city walls. Yeah. I believe that it's got to get inside the government. It's got to get inside of corporations. It's got to infect these systems. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, it feels like, yes, we are losing grip slightly, right? Where like these TradFi values, these legacy government values are starting to incept. Like, we're sitting back and waiting, like, well, what's government going to say? Well, I hope they don't regulate us too hard. Like, how do you ride that line? Like, do we build the stuff at the North Pole, the whole protocol, and then just show up in 10 years and say, hey, here's Bitcoin. We found it, guys. This is amazing. Look at this. And then just like iceberg flips. And we just get like, is it just education over time? Is it, these black swan events, fear and greed that just drive people, these quantum leaps mixed with education? Like, how do you square the circle with, like,
It's very hard, but I think everyone needs a pain point, basically. And everyone's pain point is different. It comes at them in different ways. So, like a company, they might be having a really big problem with cash on their balance sheet, just not being able to plan accordingly for their next fiscal quarters or whatever, because the money's eroding too quickly. So I think that it's all learning curve stuff. And the more companies that participate in it, I think the more we're going to learn and take away from it all. But yeah, companies are just starting to, out of necessity, like there's no other options. So, here's one thing that we don't think about is people go, oh, MicroStrategy or strategy, Saylor is pitching the Microsoft board of directors about buying Bitcoin. And people go, oh, well, Microsoft's got $50 billion on their balance sheet. Okay, great. That $50 billion on their balance sheet, if they go, oh, just buy Bitcoin with it. Now they don't have $50 billion in cash. Now the banking partner that Microsoft works with doesn't have that $50 billion in cash. So they're not making money, which means they've just changed the invoice supply chain factoring terms of all the loans that Microsoft has and all the insurance products and all the banking credit card products, because you don't have $50 billion with us anymore. So people look at this and they go, oh, what idiot, Apple's got $250 billion in cash and they don't have any Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, but by keeping that $250 billion in cash, it guarantees all the invoice supply chain factoring, all the insurance for their companies, all the credit card systems, all the banking facilities. So it's like, yes, it's $50 billion in cash, but their whole supply chain and their whole international operation depends on having all these facilities. And typically with a bank, it's, hey, we'll give you a whole bunch of good stuff if you keep money with us. That's just how business works for operations. So I think the community has a bit to learn on that regard, because it's not as one-dimensional as it may seem. We don't know what the bank does for Microsoft that makes them, run their operations so smoothly. And when you've got all these international things going on, like having Bank of America or Wells Fargo or JP Morgan, which has got a lot of exposure across the world, that helps you really big, like in a massive way, when you are manufacturing in China, getting it assembled in, Indonesia, and then having it sold in America and India and UK and Australia. Like there's so many parts to that you need a lot of friends in a lot of different places to help you execute on that. And that's typically what banking partners can do. And what you're doing for the banking partner is you are putting capital with them. Just like Tether likes having your money because Tether can now go earn on that money, the bank is exactly the same. And one of the things that's interesting actually is that people don't realize with Bitcoin, a bank literally cannot survive without customer deposits. And so when you have Bitcoin, you are taking away from the potential deposit pool that these banks can have. So if everyone was on Bitcoin, right? If there's a whole generation, let's say 15 to 25-year-olds now, they're all in crypto, right? They're not going to have deposits with the bank. So what happens to a bank when they don't get any deposits? They've got a couple people flowing through, but the bank, Gen Zs aren't rushing to get their paycheck in there and leave it in there. They're like, nah, I'm putting it on the crypto and stuff and I'll figure it out. So the bank's now just like lost a whole generation of customers almost. So what do they need to do to get deposits? Well, they need to speak the language of the customers. So you'll see banks starting to say, we're custodying Bitcoin, we're custodying crypto and all that sort of stuff, because that's how they're going to stay relevant. People think, oh man, the bank's adopting custodianship a bit. Bro, that's like, they need to do that. They die if they don't do that. They're not like, it's not like oh wow, they're adopting Bitcoin. No. They're fighting for their life. That is life support for a bank, because they're like, shit. People don't use dollars anymore. Or a whole generation thinks it's worthless. Oh shit. What do they use? I don't know, Bitcoin and crypto and this, that. Okay, well, we need that. We need deposits. That's what's going to happen, basically.
Oh man, it's so it just makes me think of in the very first thing you said was oh my gosh, I don't even know what the book is now. I mean, I think it's called The Mountain Is You. It's a great book, but it's just about your own inner game, right? Yeah. And it's it talks about the pain to change must be less than what you're dealing with now, right? Like you said, like the banks, we're going to change all this stuff just to buy Bitcoin. What, it might cost them $5, $10, $50 million a year just to change all of this stuff just to go buy Bitcoin. So the pain is not there yet in order for them to make that change. So but we're coming there. To your point, at the end, we're getting close.
Exactly. And value is like beauty, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You might think some girl's beautiful, and I think, oh no, she's not my type, and vice versa. In the same way, value is exactly the same thing. Oh, I think that's really valuable. Oh, dude, I've got no use for that. Now, you might live on an island where you don't get fresh water, and you need a bottle of water. But I might be walking down the street next to my house and see a beautiful, freezing cold bottle of water. I don't need it. So value is always relative, just like everything else. So I think when we know that, we can understand how other companies are going to find value in things. And typically that's where you add the most value, is finding finding a hole in someone's sort of value prop and adding value to it. So but I think literally value is in the eye of the beholder. So Bitcoin will be a lot of different things for a lot of different people. For the village in Colombia, it's going to be much more helpful for them to store value. For the person in supply chains, it's going to be easier to do international settlement because I can just send it to your Bitcoin wallet. That's 2 seconds. There's no 5 days Swift transfer and stuff. And so I think everyone's going to pick it for different things, but that's why you've got to be cautious that you don't try and cater to changes for the protocol to accommodate certain use cases. The protocol's got to stay as is and let the use cases be extracted from it. Don't try and be like, oh, if we add this, then these guys will use it more. No. That's a terrible precedent to set and it's not a terrible precedent for executing in general. But if you think about Bitcoin, it's a bit unique to everything else. It's not a 10-year startup. It's not a 5-year startup. It's meant to be for 100 or 1,000 years. So every decision we make or every change, while so small now, it's like being a nautical fucking sailor, like a discoverer, like Magellan or something. If you just change by 1 degree in your compass, you will end up at a very far different destination than when you're intending to go. And so right now we have because Bitcoin's so fresh in its journey relative to how old it should become, we kind of get full access hands onto the compass, which is a dangerous spot to be. So that's where it becomes like kind of like, oh shit, we need to know that we are the compass holders, which means all of our decisions have much more of an effect on the long term than we'd like, unfortunately. But that means if we know that, we've got to be very careful with how we make decisions and how we let the protocol propagate. So we should think of the protocol of Bitcoin more like a weed or a flower. You know, how are we going to make sure that it grows as big and happy as possible, and not like, you know, oh, change this or tweak that, make it blue rose petals, not yellow rose petals, and blah blah blah. It's like, let's just see if we can grow the flower. Like, the flower benefits everyone, so let's try and do that. So I think it's just like, you know, we've got to treat Bitcoin less like an experiment and more like the way that I think about it, it's like sort of Satoshi's baby, and Satoshi's died in a car accident or something, and we're the godparents. And we're not here to basically say, yeah, dude, like, we just basically say, hey, I'm the guy, your dad told me to look after you. I'm not here to be anything more other than just follow what your dad asked me to do, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what our responsibility is. But a lot of people, because Bitcoin is such a global canvas, meaning it is like, you know, it's almost like a TV show that never ends and everyone's got access to it. And so it's like a lot of people use that because they can think, well, if I can make a change on this, then that's really like notable for my career or myself or whatever it is. So sometimes that can bring out this appetite for change, almost like just doing something because you feel like you should do something because you're just sitting still. And that's one of the weird things with Bitcoin is like, it's so weird because you don't do the physical work to get the reward. You almost have to do like the cerebral work. So it's like, it doesn't reward you for putting a shovel in the ground. That's the old system. This one is like, the more you read, the more you study, the more you'll realize how good this is and the more value you'll get from me. So I think we're all sort of coming to grips with that you can do nothing. There is such thing as doing nothing. You know, just because we're making changes and like, oh, this company wants this feature and that company wants that feature. It's like, okay, that's okay, but that's not really the right mentality for long-term success. Because when you're making changes for people that are here today and maybe gone tomorrow, the protocol turns into like a Frankenstein where it's like sort of stitched all these different things on. And it doesn't really, like, there's a great saying, when you make a product for everybody, you make a product for nobody. And Bitcoin's got a very strong identity, and that's very hard to get. So that's why we say Bitcoin and crypto, because everyone knows Bitcoin's boring and money. Now, it's not the theme park. It's not where you go. Like, the way that I think about it mentally is like Earth. There's lots to do on Earth. You can go surfing, you can go skiing, you can go on roller coasters and shit. That makes it awesome. But it doesn't make it more valuable than the sun. No. The sun, you need the sun for the roller coasters to exist. So Bitcoin is boring like the sun. Maybe Ethereum and all these other chains where they're going, oh, you can do this and that and DeFi and leverage and this. Cool. That's the theme park on Earth. But Bitcoin is like the energy source of life, basically, for Earth. Yes, it's boring. No, there's no roller coasters on the sun. No, you can't go skiing on the sun. But nothing else works if that dude doesn't exist. And so that's kind of like Bitcoin in that way. And I think partitioning them into their identities, focus on what they are good at. Bitcoin is exceptionally good at being strong, slow, and reliable. Why compromise that? You need a strong, slow, reliable thing because you always need a yardstick of persistence. Like we use Jesus, like, you know, BC and AD, right? That every day we tell the time because we all stay relative to the same point in time. But that's because we have a time standard. And that's what the block height is in the future to machines. It's almost the equivalent of the sun rising. A new block, a new sunrise. Like, that's the same thing for us as it would be with machines. So as boring as that may be to some people, the power of that value prop is just insane. So like, once you realize that, it's like you would never, ever want to compromise that. And again, that's why we say Bitcoin and crypto, because crypto is still trying to figure out who it is and what it is. As where Bitcoin knows it's just money, just sound money, hard money, boring money, but it's money. So I think that's quite interesting. Or I find that interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's why I find it fascinating that people want to start running and trying to take care of problems that aren't even there, and you're going out the risk curve, right? Instead of like, harnessing the sun, like you said, and building the Dyson sphere and like, doing all of this, we're like over here trying to create amusement parks already. Like you said, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I think a lot of Bitcoiners feel that way right now, right? Where it's like, it doesn't make sense to you. We're putting the cart before the horse, right? It's like, what are we doing here? So
you don't want to let the tail wag the dog. And so when you start making protocol changes for, oh, hey, we'd be using Bitcoin, but, or what was it? And now you become like a consultancy group where it's like, oh, what changes did you need? Okay, great, we'll make those. It's like, no, fuck off. If it doesn't work for you, fuck off. But other than that, you should figure out how to extract value from this protocol because it's going to be really powerful. But yeah, you don't want to, and I learned that the hard way. I thought Bitcoin was like, oh, cool, yeah. Like back in the block size wars in 2017, I was like, in my head, I was like, yeah, why wouldn't we raise the blocks? We make double our revenue. And then I spoke to the Bitcoin maxis at our company, and they were like, nah, dude, because it's fucking with public property. It's not our, da-da-da-da-da. I was like, oh, I get it now. This is like a national park. You don't want to be the developer that goes, oh, we're putting a ski field and 2,000 apartments in this national park. It's like, fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, just because you know the mayor and you can pay him to basically get this approval doesn't mean people are going to think you're nice. But doesn't mean you're going to be popular when you go to bars around there. People are probably going to want your head on a stick for ruining it. And that's kind of how I think about Bitcoin with all these changes. It's sort of like, yes, you might be able to get them through, but like it's a public domain. So like, it's like farting on a train or something really loud. People are going to look at you like, dude, where's your etiquette? Like, that's just a guess.
It's so good because it's like if you're the developer trying to put up all this random stuff all of a sudden, like you said, it's like, well, hey, you can go do that next to the amusement park like that. You don't do that here, right? Like you go to the amusement park, you do it right there, like right next to there.
There's a way better place to do it where everyone will appreciate it, and it's like saying, look, no people live there, no people tour there, no people holiday there, but we want to put a block of apartments there. It's like, why wouldn't you put them next to the theme park and next to the water park and next to the everywhere, blah, blah, blah. Like it makes sense. But the reason why people don't know this is just inexperience. It's not that most of these people, they're not trying to do bad things. They're excited developers. And that's like, cool, let me show you my talent. And I get that. That's so cool because people want to express themselves. And that code is the way that they do that. But sometimes, whatever the term is, what's good for the goose is good for the gander or something like what's good for the geese is good for the gander or some shit. But basically, it's not Bitcoin's the way that you prove yourself in Bitcoin, I think almost is just consistency. It's not making changes. It's absorbing the protocol itself. Like we report to it, not the other way around. And obviously some people have different mentalities to that, but I see Bitcoin more as just a public utility. I try not to leave my rubbish in the park. I don't piss in the train. I don't shit on the seat in the train. Like I don't spray paint the statues. Why am I going to deface Bitcoin with, personal interest stuff? Like, and that's sort of where this whole sort of debate around spam and all this kind of stuff has come in with knots and core. And the way that I sort of simplified it for myself and for other people that I was talking to, they were surprised that I would be so supportive of knots. And I was just like, well, if I had to push everyone onto one of the implementations, like, core or knots or whatever, I would pick the one that is going to make it the chain and the community look and feel the same way as it is today. And if I push everyone onto a non-monetary focused product, it's going to be a circus in 20 years. Like if I teleported to 20 years from now and everyone's doing tokens and this and that, it's very likely that the whole money identity of Bitcoin got eroded and now Bitcoin became a jack of all trades and a master of none. And so I think, just sort of a side quest was the Bitcoin knots and Bitcoin core. Obviously, everyone's incredibly talented. You can't be successful in this space if you're not, I don't think. So, none of the devs are not good devs and stuff. It's almost like an immaturity kind of thing where it's like, oh, you haven't got enough experience to know that sometimes the best decision is to not actually do anything. And we've all learned that in one way or another. And I didn't know that as well. And so I had to learn that too in the same way. Just the same way I had to learn how to speak and write and shit like that.
Yeah.
It just comes with time on the tools, really. But I do think that, we talked about alignment earlier, and I think a lot of people in the community are learning the hard way about just how strong alignment is and how important it is, because we sort of dismiss it when things are going good and easy. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But when things are down, you start you reflect on, well, why are they down? And so much is driven by emotion when anything goes down. And if something's driven by emotion, it's usually a misalignment of emotions somewhere. And so, as a community with Bitcoin Core and Knots, for example, it helps us sharpen, what are we here for? Like, are we here to change money, or are we here to make money? I thought I signed up to try and change money, and that was the direction I was going for. But if that's not the play and everyone's here to make money and make tokens and all that sort of stuff, then okay, cool. That's interesting. But I thought we were here to change money and really trying to, because you don't get it. Like, money is like oxygen. Like, but you just don't we get oxygen out of the box, and most of us get water out of the box. But like, food, water, shelter is pretty much the necessities. But money is like this extra necessity that's added. We have a chance. If Bitcoin doesn't fuck up, we've got a chance to basically make it so the 40-hour work week for 60 years is a thing of the past. So your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids never have to do that. That's a pretty big opportunity for adding value long-term to a species. So, yeah, I'm not really rushing to pump my bags if it means that could be compromised. It's like, no way. I'm happy. Like, we're very lucky. It's like we're earlier to this than everyone else. Like, we got to see Star Wars before everyone else, so it doesn't mean we should go ruin it because we've seen it first. It's like, it's like, oh, just keep a secret. Don't tell anyone the ending. Let people figure it out for themselves or whatever. But yeah, it's,
and wisdom comes through experience, like you said. Yeah. And it's like, it feels like that's what's missing at times, just some of the wisdom which comes through experience, like you said, just time, being consistent over time and passing, because that's talent's talent. I mean, skill is skill. You can have it when you're young, old, whatever, but the wisdom comes through that experience, right?
Yeah. And again, this is all just collective leveling up. In 5 years' time, we'll know more than we did today, and that's okay. And all these things are healthy discourse, because when you have healthy discourse, it shows like a heartbeat for the system. Like, it says it's actually alive.
It's
people
great for
give
the
a
system.
shit enough to take action or to express frustration. Because if no one gave a shit, then everyone would just be apathetic and they'd be like, oh, whatever. And then that's even worse, because they're not even willing to dignify it with any emotion because they don't care. Yeah. So that's even, the opposite of love is not hate, it's apathy, which is, I'm indifferent. And so at least we've got people that are passionate about it. And I think that's overall like the best of the bad situation, or the silver lining is the discourse shows that the people are passionate still, which is important. So that's a win. Even though it might not look like a win, it's healthy to see.
Yeah. And I think I couldn't agree more. And I think that there's the trouble we run into at times with Bitcoiners is some of the tropes and, some of the memes that we use, although generally all of them have a purpose to them and they're usually spot on, things like Bitcoin's inevitable, or, Bitcoin's apolitical, or a bunch of things. It's like, that's ignoring reality. Like, I get why people might say that, but at the same time, or rules without rulers, that leads us down a road where, like, I don't have to pay attention ever. And that's where we find ourselves, I think, today politically, of why for so long, for so many decades, no one was paying attention. No one was asking questions. No one had a heartbeat, and we just let someone else take care of it. And here we are, we find ourselves in this mess. I don't think Bitcoin's ever going to be just a system running on its own, obviously, with no one, it's just a bunch of rules. There's no rulers around. It's not that there's rulers. It's just people plugged into the system and actually taking care of it and making sure that it has the ethos to stand that test of time. That's always going to be there.
Yeah. So, and I think the focus, like, it's that age-old saying, focus is not what you say yes to doing, it's what you say no to doing. And Bitcoin for the longest time has done nothing. It's been boring. You want tokens? Another chain. L2's other chain. Basically, it's been very no. Like, it's like a bouncer at a club doesn't let anyone in. And so I think, like, recently with Core, they sort of changed the tune where it was a bit like, oh yeah, what was the change? Yeah, cool. Let's just figure out a way to make it work. It's like, no, because now you don't know who you are. If you and a lot of the arguments are, oh, Bitcoin's open and permissionless and stuff. I was like, cool, that's loser speak. You are trying to displace a $400 trillion industry called money. You think these
Yeah.
guys are not good at what they do? They are extremely good at what they do. And so for you to be like, we're just going to pick 8 different ways of adding stuff. No. This is like lock in, like real airtight focus, because you are fighting the hardest guy in the video game, money. And if you're not focused and you haven't got your combos right, or you haven't practiced your accuracy or your aiming or whatever it is, you are toast. So the idea that you could do 18 things and beat it all is just not feasible. Focus is critical. Focus is like, as well, when you focus, you get the benefits of new knowledge, because it's like focus is compound interest, but for your brain. So compound knowledge, basically. If you keep focusing on one thing, you level up at that thing. And so money being a $400 trillion, let's say, target, you need to have all your tools and all your ducks in a row if you actually want to make a sizable crack at displacing the heavyweight champion of the world. But, you know, I tell you what, the heavyweight champion, let's say you're Mike Tyson, and there's this young dude coming up who's awesome. He trains boxing, he trains jiu-jitsu, he is a baseball player, he's a cyclist, he's a surfer. Who is ever going to be able to do that when they're trying to beat the best in the world, who focuses only on one thing? You will never be able to beat them, because you are spreading yourself too thin. And that's just a general problem that we see a lot of the time. So for me, I was actually thinking about core, that lack of focus says, that's a chink in the armor. True story, because and that's not anything against anyone. That's just, if you are not focused, you will
humans.
lose, period. No one in history, Lance Armstrong, Michael Jordan, Pepsi, Nike, Apple, Coca-Cola, whatever, nobody in history has won anything if they're not focused. And so a lot of people don't like to be focused. They think it's cool to be everything. They think it's cool to have no direction. They don't think it's cool to set goals. That's fine, but that's loser speak. Like, not being rude, that you just can't achieve like very high magnitudes of success without focus, especially in today's world, because we have so many distractions at every turn, like every corner we turn around, you know? So now is the time where focus is really even, you know, more of a superpower. And Bitcoin has always had that focus. It's always been boring. It's always been money. It's never really questioned it until sort of the past sort of 6 to 12 months. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes, we will. And it's activity bias. And it's activity bias too, right? I mean, it's just like we feel like as humans we need to do things all the time.
Yes.
Like you said, the challenge is just staying patient. Yeah. So the challenge is staying patient, staying consistent. And it's I love that you wrapped that up with focus, because that is with sports, everything. I mean, it's like if you're trying to
look at you,
do
you've
something,
got
you
the
gotta
hockey
focus.
stuff in the background, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't be a fantastic hockey player if you would have died. You were obsessed with it. Like in the backyard, fucking flicking around, thinking about your stick, thinking about a puck. You need to be consumed. It needs to be like intoxicating. Because the person, you never work. If you're intoxicated by your passion, you're not working. Like when a 7-year-old sits down and plays video games, he doesn't think he's working. He thinks he's playing video games because he's obsessed with it. That's why focusing on something, it gives you the obsession. So it takes the pain of work away. You don't have the same pain to get up and go do it. You have this, it's almost like an attraction. You're being drawn. Every day you wake up out of bed and you're like, oh yes, I get to work on that thing that I'm focused on. But if you're not focused, and I say this as someone with just ridiculous ADHD who's never been focused on anything my whole life. And so like, that's like, I feel like I'm sort of speaking from some practical experience here, but maybe I'm just projecting because I'm not focused. I just think everyone else needs to be focused.
Well, that's why. Hey, I'm the guy I'm a night owl. I'm terrible with my time. It's like working out, eating right, everything. I'm so disciplined, but like time has been my bugaboo my entire life. But I'm the first one to tell you how good going to sleep early is, getting to bed early, all this stuff. Because I know from experience, like how great it is and how much I wish I could do it consistently.
Yes, because you have the pain point. You know how valuable it is when you do achieve it. You're like, oh 100%. My God, game changer.
It is. And to wrap on just price, we were talking about, just speaking of changing the game we're playing. Like if we're going after spam, or if we're going after, JPEGs, or we're going after trying to be, utility, like we're XRP. Well, okay, if that actually works, that's only a couple $1 trillion industry. Like you mentioned, I mean, it's a what, 450 trillion to maybe a quadrillion, accounting for all assets in the world. Where do you stand in that? I don't, like Jack Mallers is always, hey, it's 450. Jeff Booth, it's like, it's got to account for every dollar. It's all 900 trillion. Where do you see Bitcoin end game, whenever that is, but where do you see the end game being? What does it have to account for?
So I actually think what it's going to do is, one of the big things people talk about is Bitcoin scaling. Oh, it can't do as much as Visa and stuff. Mate, I don't know about you, but every single person that I know that's gotten into Bitcoin, their consuming behavior goes down. Like, people don't rush to buy stuff all the time. People think, I could do without, I'd rather buy some sats. Basically, people are getting smarter at preserving their capital. So what happens as a full Bitcoin standard, obviously the money industry, call it 400 trillion, new use cases will come out. So it'll probably be a $1 quadrillion industry, but the throughput won't be as required as we think, because everyone's going to become saving money maxis, because now people are like, oh, I don't want to get rid of my Bitcoin. I know it goes up all the time. And because we've got such a pain point with work, we're like, no, that's an easy way to make money. So I think the most common behavior we'll see is consumerism will go down. So people will actually buy more things that they need, not want, because Bitcoin is a need. I mean, you want as much Bitcoin. So the only time you're ever going to sell Bitcoin or not buy Bitcoin is for something you absolutely need. So accommodation, food, and shelter. But you're not going to sell Bitcoin to go buy like a Balenciaga watch or some shit. Like, that's just that those two worlds don't mix kind of thing, I don't think. Because Bitcoin teaches you so much in that regard. So it'll be a huge industry, less spending habits, and companies, because companies will probably be holding Bitcoins on their balance sheet. It means that their company, the revenue, they'll be growing because the Bitcoins are growing. So what's going to happen now? If my money is growing 40% a year on our bank account, or like in our company, then I'm probably going to say, you know what? Fuck the 18 different products we got. We don't need to figure out how to get shoes from Sri Lanka and then stitched together in Bali and then sent to China for assembly. That's too headachy. We're making 40% on our Bitcoin. Let's just focus on one product. So I think companies are going to shrink their product offerings down to one narrow focus, because we make 20 products as a company because we need 20 more revenue streams. But if we've got a golden goose, we're just going to focus on the stuff that's worth our time, and not the busy work of making, chargers, mouse pads, all this stuff. It's like, no, we're Apple and we just make computers. We're going to get rid of the chargers and rid of this, rid of that. These are all extra bells and whistles that are just supply chain headaches. So I think that's what sort of happens. The evolution, everyone becomes more disciplined. So both individuals and companies. Yeah.
Beautiful. Community is the number one most important thing in a survival situation. And newsflash, you're human, so you're in a survival situation. October 10th through the 13th is your island retreat. Camp Nakamoto, brought to you by Mass Adoption. I will be speaking there. Nellie Brunel, Mark Moss, Larry Lepard, David Foley, James Lavish, BJ Dichter, Luke Broyles, Michelle Weekly, and many more will be there to have fun. Lots of games, activities, Kettleman's Feast, crab bakes. There's going to be everything you can imagine as a beautiful part of Northern New Hampshire. We look forward to seeing you there for 15% off tickets. Gentile 15, Gentile 15, Gentile 15. There's only a couple dozen remaining out of the 100 plus that were available. So get them now. We look forward to seeing you in October. What are your thoughts on just a 4-year cycle? Do we see a super cycle at some point? And what's the stacking goal for someone? It gets less every time. It was 6.15, it was 100, then it was 10, now it's 6.15, now it's 1, now it's 0.1, everyone's got their own trope. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think having a stacking goal is incredible. So people used to save for a house, and they don't do that anymore because they don't know if the money they're saving, if it takes me 5 or 10 years to save for a house, in 5 or 10 years time, the money's changed so much that I might not even be able to buy my house. As where when people say, oh, I've got a goal to get 1 million sats a month or something, that's what they want to save or whatever it is. That's fantastic because they can set that for 4 or 5 years away and work backwards with a high degree of confidence that the sats will be worth something. And so I think people setting goals and stuff like that has been fantastic. I think working backwards from sats goals is a very powerful way to reorientate your life in a healthy way. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then 4-year cycle, super cycle.
4-year cycle.
Thoughts on that?
I don't think it breaks yet. I don't think it breaks, unfortunately. Look, I'm sure it can very soon, but people stand to gain too much from the cycle not breaking. And that's like the powers that be and all that stuff. Everyone needs the pullbacks. I think we're not out of the woods yet. I think we get to probably 200, 220K this cycle and then probably pull back and rinse, repeat. So, look, I hope the cycles go on forever, but realistically, I'd say like my numbers are like 200 to 220 and then pulling back from that. Some people say $500 million, all this stuff. If it gets to 200, I'm thrilled. And if it pulls back after that, my expectations are managed. So no dramas.
Amazing stuff, Michael. I can't wait to do this again. It was an absolute blast.
Yeah, man. Anytime, by the way. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, thanks so much. Awesome. Thanks so much, Brandon. I appreciate it.
If you like that episode, then you're going to love the playlist we put together for you with our most recent podcast with the top Bitcoiners, sound money, liberty advocates in the world. Go check those out here. We'll see you inside. You're going to love them.